Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. And it's nice to have friends that are smart. So I'm going to head out to the hotline. I want to talk about the transfer portal for the basketball side of things. So I bring in my smart friend, Terrence Oglesby, the former Clemson guard. Terrence, how are you, sir?
Well, you must not have very smart friends if you're calling me one of your smart friends. But other than that, I mean, just kind of I'm getting ready for next season already. I've had some things pop up and things are starting to shake a little bit. So I just want to be prepared. But I'm excited to talk about the transfer portal a little bit with you today.
All right. Well, it's something that is affecting across all sports, in my opinion. Dave Clawson called it the trash portal. Of course, the head coach for the Wake Forest football team, where you're going to end up with a bunch of guys that are in the transfer portal and they may not end up with a place to go. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Yesterday, Alonzo Frank said from South Carolina that he's entering the transfer portal, and that program has a lot of guys that have moved on, and Clemson's had some guys that have moved on too. But what are your thoughts on the transfer portal on the college hoop side?
Well, I think it's important to realize that this isn't just a one program thing. I mean, over the entire Division I, there's been 1,650 plus some odd transfers. Well, that averages out to about 4.6 per school in the country. So it's not necessarily one school that's happening here, one school that's happening here. It's everywhere. And when you look at it in comparison to other teams, South Carolina, they've lost a couple of guys, but it hasn't been brutal. Clemson's lost, I want to say, either 3 or 4 players, but it really hasn't been brutal. You look somewhere right down the road at UGA, Tom Crean lost 8 of his top 10 scorers, and they have 8 new scholarship players on the roster for next season. So what does that tell you? One, I think it's a combination of things this year. I think the fact that players could not escape their teammates, they couldn't escape the basketball atmosphere. I think that contributed because there's a lot of unhappiness and there was a lot of isolation, quite frankly. And 2, the first year of this occurring, people don't really know the downside. They just know, oh, well, look, I might be able to go somewhere else and be happy. One of the biggest problems I think people are going to find out, it's very easy to get in the portal. It's going to be difficult to get out of the portal because you got a lot of Division II players coming up to Division I as well. There's going to be a lot of unhappy people.
Well, in my opinion, you don't really know who your team's going to be. I mean, you look back on certain at certain teams that I think are good, and the continuity and things like that make a difference. But you literally can go every year and have a completely different basketball team now.
Well, you can look at it 2 ways. One, you can look at it if you're a coach who's been at a school for a long time, you better treat your players well. Now, you can get on them, but you better maintain that relationship because I think more than anything, we have to remember that these are young adults, 18 to 22 years old. You need to treat these guys right. And I think the majority of programs where guys have treated their guys right, kids tend to stay. Now, you're always going to have an unhappy kid that thinks he can either go to a higher level, i.e. somebody who plays at South Carolina State who's trying to transfer up maybe to a Furman or what have you. But at the same time, you can't treat your guys a certain way, which I think is a good thing for the players.
Is it an issue of treating the guys a certain way, or is it an issue of maybe a guy thinks, I'm better than what this coach thinks I am?
There's always going to be that, but the market determines how good you are eventually. And, you look at a couple of years ago, Scott Spencer transfers out of Clemson where he's playing in the ACC, transfers down to LaSalle. LaSalle's in the A-10, a much lesser league. And he goes from shooting in the mid-20s to shooting near 40%. Now, conventional wisdom would say, well, why didn't he shoot it like that at Clemson? Well, because the guys he was playing against were much better and they were able to contest shots at a higher rate. Well, Scott Spencer, he goes down a level, he plays much better. I think, there's always going to be people unhappy. I think the fact of the matter is, I think COVID played a huge role. I think we'll still see anywhere from 10 to 1,100 players go in the portal per year, but I do think activity as far as the portal is concerned will drop off. And if you're a coach, and here's the thing that I really like about it, and that makes it intriguing for me, somebody who watches from afar and is not directly related anymore. Like, if you're, say, a new coach, say you're Steve Forbes at Wake Forest, you can hunker down on that transfer portal. You can be really good a lot quicker than you used to be because you don't necessarily have to develop people anymore. On the flip side of that, if you're a low major team, you could have a superstar in your conference and just know he's going to leave after 1 year. So it makes it difficult on a lot of fronts, but it also makes it pretty advantageous depending on what seat you're looking at it from.
You mentioned the a superstar, kind of a mid-major. I mean, that was kind of the deal with Nick Honor. I mean, he was lights out at when he played. Where was he? Was he at Fordham before? I can't remember. But I mean, he was great.
He was at Fordham.
Yeah, he was great there. And then, hey, I can move on and play in the ACC. So maybe it takes a little bit away from the mid-major type schools.
Well, it absolutely does. But at the same time, I go back to what I said earlier. You get somebody like a Scott Spencer, who wasn't very good at Clemson, goes down to LaSalle and was terrific, and has just transferred again. He's going to Tulane to play for Ron Hunter. So, I mean, it can work both ways. And, water always finds its level. I had a friend tell me that the other day, and it's starting to happen a lot more with these players. Some of them get over-evaluated, and some of them get under-evaluated. And I think that's a big portion of it. And if you go back and look, the transfer portal hasn't been all bad for either South Carolina or Clemson. You look at Clemson's most recent success, their Sweet 16 team, Marquise Reed, transfer from Robert Morris. Shelton Mitchell went to Vanderbilt, wasn't happy. Eli Thomas went to Texas A&M, wasn't happy. David Scara was a better player than Valparaiso, playing in the Horizon League, should have played in the ACC from the beginning. So you look at the positives as far as a high major team is concerned, and you look at the positives as far as a mid-major team is concerned, to where they could capitalize on players who may not get enough tick at the high major level, but they can still be very valuable and productive players in the lower levels of college basketball.
If you're going to advise a young man, what would you think? What would you tell a young man who says, "Hey, I'm thinking about transferring"? Is it a situational type case with every player?
It is. I mean, there's no question about it. It is a situational type thing with each player. You look at somebody like a Michael Flowers, who was at University of South Alabama. Well, he averaged 21 points a game. You average 21 points a game in Division I college basketball in the Sun Belt Conference. You ought to be trying to further your career, not just in college, but to the next level. And if you're averaging 15 a game at a Pac-12 school, he transferred to Washington State. I'm looking at Washington State right now as we're speaking because I'm getting ready for next season. But if you look at a player like him, he's looking at pro potential. You're obviously going to get much more exposure at a Power 5 school as opposed to a Sun Belt school. And so for him, it's beneficial. If you look at another kid, say Omax Prosper, for example, I would have advised him to stay. Why do you ask? Because it takes a second to get into the system that Coach Brownell employs. Look at PJ Hall. He could have played a lot more at another school. He decided to stay around, and he's going to reap the benefits from that. Omax could have been the same way because Clemson, quite frankly, needed that really long athletic combo forward, a guy who could play the 3 and the 4, who's very switchable. He would have been very valuable in the system that Clemson has employed. Now, for him to leave early, he's going to have to go to a brand new coach in Marquette and Coach Shaka Smart in a brand new system. And he's basically going to have to relearn a lot of things. And I think in the long term, it may hurt Omax Prosper more than help him.
When it comes to a young man like Alonzo Franken, I don't know how much you have followed with what he has done at South Carolina, but the track record for Frank Martin, though, is that big men eventually develop. They play a little bit their freshman year. They get a little more playing time their sophomore year. And by their junior year, Frank Martin's got them coached up where they can end up like a Mike Kotsar or something like that, where they're really good players. But do you think that guys like that really should take an opportunity to say, hey, and look at the track record of the coach and the way they develop?
Well, you look at him, he's going to be a senior, and he's been through it for 3 years. He's never averaged more than 5 points a game, so maybe he wants to try his luck elsewhere. I mean, 6'7", 260, he's a good player, but he hasn't really been utilized because they've had Keyshawn Bryant, Jermaine Cousinard, all these guys, to where they've been really good in more of a perimeter, and A.J. Lawson, a perimeter-oriented team as far as scoring is concerned. And look at the conference he plays in. SEC is widely known as one of the biggest, most physical conferences. So every night, Frank is going up against 6'10", 6'11". Well, he's a 5-man at 6'7", 260 pounds. He's going to struggle with that length. to me, I look at that as maybe he's a level too high, and maybe he'll be able to find a home where some of his skill set will be better served. And I think it'll be against some smaller teams, maybe a conference or two level down.
All right. So Joe Lunardi, what was it, a couple days ago, released his first bracketology in June. I kind of laughed at it, but I look at the bracketology, and he's got Clemson there as like his next 4 out. Your thoughts on Clemson, and can they live up to that potential that Lunardi has for them in June?
Well, I think it's going to be hard. One, because you lose Amir Sims, who was your key cog for everything. Now, PJ Hall is going to be a good player, but he's not going to be senior year level Amir Sims right off the bat. I get a little nervous because I think Naz Bohannon, I think he's a beast in the post. He can get a rebound and take off, but he's only about 6'5", 230. So I get a little bit nervous about that. And quite frankly, Rob, who's going to shoot the ball for Clemson? Alex Hemingway? He hit 14 last year. So let's keep it in perspective. Shoots good percentages, but he's going to have to hunt his shot a little bit more. Chase Hunter has not played well. You look for him to take a step. And Alamir Dawes and Nick Honor have been spotty at best in most of their time in a Tiger uniform. I think that's going to be a difficult adjustment, not having Amir to run everything through. But the Tigers, quite frankly, are just going to have to play a lot faster. And it's going to take some time before they get comfortable. Now, will they knock off a couple teams? They won't. They always do. They shouldn't. They always do. But at the same time, I think from a consistency standpoint, that's not where the returnees have specialized. And if they're going to be really good, they're going to have their transfer, David Collins, have a heck of a year. And Nick Honor and Chase Hunter are both going to have to step up in major ways for the Tigers to be able to compete and at least be in a conversation for the NCAA tournament this season.
Isn't that something that's kind of hindered Clemson a little bit? I mean, the teams that make the tournament, they always have a guy that can really shoot the ball a little bit. But then the teams that fall short are, you got a bunch of guys out there that can play, but maybe they don't have the cohesion and the ability to space the floor with a shooter and everything else. Isn't that kind of the way that Clemson normally sets up?
Well, in theory, I mean, a lot of those guys can shoot it. In theory, the problem last couple of years has been they haven't been able to put any pressure on the rim. And what happens when you're able to put pressure on the rim is you're able to get maybe a foot or two more open on the perimeter. So Amir Sims last year, he was best whenever he was 15 feet away from the basket and trying to hit cutters. Clemson struggled to put pressure on the rim in order to force help rotation, so they're having to shoot over high hands pretty consistently. And if you look at the shots that Nick Honor was able to hit last year, especially when he was able to get hot, I would venture to guess that 65 to 70% of them were in semi-transition and transition opportunities where he's shooting them early in the clock. They've got to find a way in the half court to put more pressure on the rim and that'll give them the ability to hit more shots from the outside as well.
Terrence Oglesby joining us here on the Rundown this afternoon. I've got a couple of NBA questions for you before we get you out of here. Chris Paul and the Suns, I'm a Suns apologist. I admit that, but put into the COVID-19 protocol today, I tell you what, the Suns are hoping that Clippers Jazz series goes to 7. So hopefully he can get out of that, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Hopefully. I mean, he's pretty much changed the way Phoenix has been able to play because he's been able to hit mid-range jumpers. And it seems like every team in the NBA has gone away from mid-range jumpers. They've gone to this soft ball screen coverage, and that's the shot that's open. And he's been able to hit about 65% of them. And if you're able to hit layups at 65%, I think coaches would be happy. He's just been so brutally efficient. I think it's going to be really difficult to replace his kind of effort, his kind of leadership. I'm one of the biggest Chris Paul fans in the world. I thought as far as most valuable was concerned, I don't think there's any question that Chris Paul was the most valuable player in the NBA. Now, his stats didn't say it, but his impact on the team, his impact on the offense, his impact on the mentality going every night changed the Suns franchise.
It's the most amazing thing with him is his ability to just slow it down. If you watch the Suns last year, everything was let's run up and down the floor and do our thing, and Booker's running crazy and he's getting his points, etc. But Chris Paul has that ability in the fourth quarter. It seems like slow down a little bit, will get us a good shot, and that's when they're putting teams away. That's how they put the Lakers away.
Well, that and Chris Paul is so good at getting other players to their spots So Devin Booker's still been equally productive. I don't know how in the world he's not on an All-NBA team. That baffles my mind. But uh, Chris Paul is able to dictate where Devin Booker can get the basketball. And it has made him more effective, and it's made the Suns overall more effective. And not to mention, the center position has pretty much disappeared from basketball outside of Embiid and Jokic. That's the reason they were high in the MVP rankings. But DeAndre Ayton has been really good as well, and he has been an excellent pick-and-roll partner beside Chris Paul and, quite frankly, Devin Booker.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Looking at the other series, you've got tonight Game 5 in the East with the Hawks and the 76ers. On paper, you would think the Sixers will be running away with it, but Atlanta's made a good series out of this.
Oh, well, they've been brutally efficient, really fun to watch. The only problem is Clint Capella has given them 0 on the interior. He has been scared to death playing against Joel Embiid. But how fun has Trae Young been to watch? I mean, a little bit of an attitude, kind of your quirky cousin he kind of gets under everybody's skin, but he finds ways to win. Like, he has been a lot of fun to watch, and he's been basically the cog for everything that the Hawks have done. And Bogdanovich, by the way, has emerged as right there at a top 40 player in the NBA and a fringe all-star. He's been excellent off the catch. He's been able to work some pick-and-roll stuff, and he works really well from the top of the key, getting his own shot. Hawks have tools, and they've been young for a long time. I feel like they're a player or two away, but there's a lot of excitement brewing in Atlanta for good reason.
All right, and in the other series, Milwaukee had a chance last night to rally and get themselves where they could go up 3-2 in the series, but the Nets were kind of underhanded, but still came out with the win. Durant with 49 points last night.
Well, he had to. James Harden was he gave it a go, but you could tell, like, I've ripped the hamstring. It is not fun. It is very painful. He could not move last night, and they needed Kevin Durant to be as good as what he was. 49-point triple-double. Nobody can stop that man. There's been a lot of hate going towards Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's not going to go again. He's not a traditional all-star in the last 15, 20 years of the NBA where he's going to tell the coach, like, this is what I'm going to do. He's very much a coach's player. So if he's told to do something, then he's going to do exactly that. And he was a first-team all-defensive guy. But he was that because of his off-ball activity as a defender, not necessarily because he's a lockdown one-on-one defender. Now, there comes a point where he's going to have to put him on his back because NBA is a star-driven league. He is an NBA superstar. He's going to have to, take the bull by the horns and guard him. But at the same time, he volunteered to do that, but he said as long as the coach wants. So it's going to have to be one of these situations where he tells Budenholzer, I want KD. Everybody else, do not help. I'm going to take this challenge because he's the one guy on the opposing roster who has the length, size, and strength to at least stay with Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant's the best player in the basketball universe. He has been for some time, but you're going to have to throw your best bodies at him, at least to try to discourage him.
And finally, you mentioned stars out in the West. Of course, tonight you've got Game 5 with the Clippers and Jazz. The Clippers will be without Kawhi Leonard. The Jazz will be without Mike Conley. I mean, that's 2 stars that are basically out of the lineup, but series tied at 2, and you got to lace them up and go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Conley doesn't hurt as much as what Kawhi Leonard does because Kawhi this playoffs has been the go-to. And Tyronn Lue, I don't think it's any secret that he's not an X's and O wizard. He gets out of his best player's way and he lets them go. He did it with LeBron. He's doing it with Kawhi. They're not running anything crazy special. It's just get the ball to your best player and let him go. Paul George has been pretty good at it. Kawhi Leonard has been exceptional. And him not being there gives you a go-to bucket guy that you hope Paul George could do it, but he hasn't been consistent enough this season to really give me faith in that team. And the Utah Jazz just play so well together. And I've become a Donovan Mitchell fan to the nth extent because he's so explosive and he plays off his jump shot. A little bit like me, except I was like the single A version of Donovan Mitchell. You hit a couple of shots and then you're hopefully able to get downhill. That was, small country Europe kind of guy, but that was kind of how I had to operate. But he has been fantastic all season. him along with Jason Tatum and Devin Booker, those three not making an all NBA team, I thought was just blasphemous. And it's time for the league to move on. LeBron James does not deserve an all NBA nod when he plays 40 out of the 72 games or however many games they have. That's not okay. Like, the media needs to be held in check, whoever has votes. It needs to be rewarded to the players that give their best the entire season. And because what happens, Rob, is it's hurting these guys' wallets too. Jason Tatum lost out on $35 million because he didn't make an all NBA team, but LeBron James did. To me, it's baffling.
I completely agree with you on that. Now, you say you're getting ready for next season. You mentioned you were watching Washington State basketball. You are the epitome of a hoops head, watching some Washington State basketball in June here. Tell us what you got on tap for the upcoming season.
Well, it's not public knowledge yet, so I'm going to have to hold it pretty close to the vest.
Fair enough.
But
well, you can talk about your podcast, right? Your podcast is still going to be going, right?
I will not be doing my own podcast. I will be working with another company, and it'll be really exciting. And I'm not going to strictly cover Clemson basketball this year. I will be doing national stuff. Now, as far as how I go about that, stay tuned. I should be able to announce it probably in August or September of this year, but we're on the way to putting it together. All the particulars are going to be figured out. So it's pretty exciting for me. It's a heck of an opportunity to grow. It's a very big platform, and it's something that I look forward to more every day. But the good thing is I'm doing not just ACC, not just Clemson, but I'll be doing nationwide stuff. So that's one of the reasons I'm sitting here watching Pac-12 basketball. And I'm going to be honest, Rob, Washington State, go ahead and bet the over. That's a heck of a team in Pullman, maybe. That's a heck of a team in Pullman.
Does this mean you're going to be too big to come on the program anymore?
No, you call me, I'm on, baby. You don't have to worry about it, Big Rob. I'm here every day.
Terrence Oglesby joining us here on the Rundown. Of course, talking some basketball knowledge with us, the transfer portal, stuff with the NBA. And he'll have a big announcement coming here soon. So we'll have to, hopefully, we'll be strapped in for that. Terrence, tell folks where they can find you on Twitter for some of the basketball knowledge you put out there.
At Coach TO22. Find me. I do a little bit of everything. I'll talk a little bit of trash with everybody. Go back and forth, ask questions. I answer them all. I'm on my phone all the time. My wife will attest to that. And then we will, I'll talk trash to anybody, Rob. You know me. So at Coach TO22, get a hold of me. Let's talk some hoop.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for joining us on the Rundown, buddy. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
All right, there you go. Terrence Oglesby, the former Clemson basketball player, joining us here on the Rundown. We appreciate him. And, he can't tell you where he's going, but I think I kind of know. I'm not supposed to say anything. So we'll see about that. Oh, I forgot to challenge him to a game of horse. I'll tweet at him during the break about that. I'm not scared, man. I'll shoot horse against anybody. Terrence has got to spot me a couple of letters, though. When I mention horse to him, he's probably going to laugh hysterically. He'd probably tell me to play his son. I think his son's like 7 or 8. If you can beat my son, then we'll play. Anyway, follow Terrence Oglesby on Twitter at Coach TO22. His basketball mind is outstanding with the stuff that he can come up with. And I'm going to talk football here in a little bit. Tom online said Shane Beamer is ranked 65th out of the 65 best head coaches by CBS out of all the Power 5 coaching spots. And he says that's nothing short of disgraceful. I kind of agree with Tom on that. Yeah, we'll get into that when we come back. Right here on The Rundown, you're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. '65th. Holy mess. Out of 65 teams? I got to find this list, man. That's insane. Hey, Tom, if you find out where that is, I'm looking for it. Is it on the CBS Sports site? Because we're going to put that on the bookcase of accountability. Because I can promise you this. I don't know much about football. Exactly. That's where it's going to go. I can guarantee you Shane Beamer will not be the 65th worst coach, best coach, whatever, by the time that comes out. I can guarantee you that. Just his coordinators are good enough to keep him in the top 40, for goodness sake. Wow. What a mess that is. That's insane. I'm looking for it right now on the CBS website here. I don't see it. Hey, Tom, if you follow me on Twitter, message me that, please, at Rob Sounds Good, because that's a mess, my friend. That is an absolute mess. That's insane, gentlemen. Absolutely insane. Get out of here with Satterfield. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Tom is trying to get me upset today with the stuff he's posting. We'll talk about that in a moment. We've got to go out to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Tom, don't you upset my friend Rob Sanders.
Tom's all right. What you got for the show there, Double O?
I got Beamer. I've been seeing some ads on TV. Beamer, he evidently got a pretty smart fella. I think he's remember when what was his name? Morrison, I think, that brought in the Black Magic when Carolina had about 3 winning seasons in a row.
Right.
Is that correct information?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, sir.
He's been advertising on TV. I don't know if you noticed, and talking about how loud it is at Carolina at Williams-Brice Stadium, and getting all these fans excited and all, and get them riled up.
Yeah. Here's my thing, and you're probably the biggest Clemson fan that I know. Would you agree that it's really stupid to put Shane Beamer as the 65th ranked coach out of 65 coaches in the Power 5?
Absurd.
I mean,
absolutely absurd.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you go.
Hey, I got. Can I have some more time, please?
Yeah, have at it. Let's go.
Now, I cannot give you 25 minutes of my precious time, like T.O. does. I can't do that.
Well, Terrence,
I'm very, very, very busy individual.
All right. How about it? What you got, man?
Well, what I was talking about, Mr. Beamer Jr., only time will tell, you see. And I think that it's a good thing that he's getting these fans. He can't go wrong there. He can't, even if it works, fine, he wins. If it doesn't work, he still wins, because you follow me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. But I don't think, this is what I'm going to boil it down all to this, and then I'm going to go, man. I'll say it again and again and again and again. They had Steve Spurrier there. They had Lou Holtz, some of the best head coaching talent in the land. It didn't get done. How is Beamer Jr. going to rise above that? That's what I mean. That's basic common sense.
Yeah, I mean you're right about that, man. You got anything else you want to add to the show? I'm just so happy for him to let him get riled up. Oh, come on now.
To win 6 games at the most. That is a wonderful thing. Have a good one, Mr. Sanders. Whoa!
All right, brother. Thanks for calling the show. We appreciate it. All right, there you go. Some happiness there from Double O. I'm kind of stunned with what Tom's telling me here about Shane Beamer's ranked 65th. Look, I will take his defensive coordinator, and he's better than, I would say, I don't know, 10 of the bottom 10 that I haven't even seen this list. I'll take the defensive coordinator as a head coach right now over the bottom 10 of the list by himself. He's never been a head coach before. What a you know, I think there's a thing, and it's sort of like when South Carolina joined the SEC. Paul Feinbaum wrote columns about South Carolina was going to set football back, 3 decades, and that's why I laugh when Gamecock fans start talking about Paul Feinbaum saying things about them. That's great. Paul Feinbaum hates you. I mean, that's just real. The only team that he likes is Alabama. That's pretty much what it boils down to. But he wrote all this stuff, and I think there's people that still have this set thing of South Carolina is going to be terrible. That's just the mentality that some people have. And then they're just not going to get out of it. I don't know if that's going to, and Shane Beamer's having to fight that, to be completely honest with you. So, and here's the thing, South Carolina had those great seasons in the 2010s, etc. The Clowney teams, Gilmore, all those guys. So it's shown that it can be done here. But the problem is that there has to be a level of consistency on the recruiting trail. Okay. And South Carolina teetered off on that. And, Coach Spurrier said that too in interviews afterwards. So there's that too. It's just, you have to, they talk about changing the culture. It's not just changing the culture with the guys that are in the program. It's changing everybody else's opinion of the program. And what Shane Beamer is doing right now with just the online presence of what he's doing with everything is positive. Everything you hear about the football team right now is positive for South Carolina. It really is. Now, of course, it's different when you actually get out onto the field and actually start after hitting people. And, you're going to need some of those Joes. I get that. We'll see how that works out. Just amazing. 65 out of 65. Come on, man. Let's try to do better on that, all right? 803-978-1832. Alan online says Heupel is better than Shane Beamer. Okay. Look, if you want to have a conversation about that, neither one of them has. Heupel took over down at Central Florida, and he pretty much had things lined up. I don't know how good of a recruiter Heupel's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be better than Shane Beamer or not, but we'll see. Things will shake out. But to put him at 65th is just kind of really. Okay, then. 803-978-1832. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I think I've found this list. We'll go over some of it. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I let the scam callers listen to Rob Sounds Good with me. I'm a good guy. You're funny. I'm looking for this list right now. 65. What is it? Power 5. These things are great. They actually wrote up how stupid they are. Wow, with some of this stuff, man. Wow. What a mess. Good find there, Tom. My goodness. Yeah, I think Jackpot and I are going to talk about this tonight, too. Watch. I'm going to read this list to Jackpot and watch his head spin off tonight. Be sure to check out the Rob and Kale show tonight. That's going to be fun as Jackpot loses his mind. I'm looking at some of them right now. It's like, are you serious? What are you doing here? The author is Dope McDoperson. What a disaster. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon. I found the article that Tom was talking about online. Tom is the executive producer of the program today. Thank you for that, Tom. Whatever it is I'm paying you, triple it. Triple it, sir. South Carolina's Shane Beamer is ranked 65 out of the 65 Power 5 jobs as far as the head coaches go. This is what the author wrote this. We will not say his name here because, this is insane. Shane Beamer. While none of our voters subscribe to the same approach to their rankings every year, we tend to see new coaches without experience running their own program end up on the bottom. Beamer has a famous name and plenty of experience as an assistant at the Power 5 level, but he's never been a coordinator, which probably hurt him compared to his two fellow newcomers. So let me get this straight. You're just going to say because he wasn't a coordinator, that makes him the worst coach in the country as far as your rankings go. Okay, then. Let's look at it from this perspective. I like Dino Babers, but if I had the choice between Dino Babers and Shane Beamer, I think I'm going to go with Shane Beamer. Dino Babers is ranked 59 at Syracuse. They've been just inconsistent as all get out. A couple of other names that are above Shane Beamer here. It's not really fair to put Jeff Collins there because he's had to completely redo a system there where they went from an antiquated 1950s offense basically with a twist into a regular offense. But Josh Heupel is at 52. They're just basing that on the fact that he was good at Central Florida. Justin Fuente will be lucky to have a job if they go 6-6 this year at Virginia Tech. Let's look at a couple of the other names here. Scott Frost was not very good at Nebraska. There was one other name that just kind of stuck out to me, and I just looked at it and I was like, huh? How is that working out? Vanderbilt's Clark Lee is another guy that's never had any head coaching experience. We'll put him up. We'll put him ahead of Shane Beamer. Okay. Man, Shane Beamer he has to be sitting there thinking it's almost like his own Rocky movie. Everybody's doubting us. Nobody thinks we're going to be worth anything. I'd be telling the team that every day. All these people are out there thinking, hey, I'm the worst coach in the Power 5 according to these rankings. If I'm Shane Beamer, I would use that. Why not? Nobody's going to think that you're good anyway. You think about that as you run around this summer lifting weights and everything else. Nobody's going to think you are worth anything. Look at this. Some of the other names that are on this list are interesting to say the least. Let me give you a couple more before we head to break here. Carl Durrell at Colorado. Oh, okay. There was one other name that really stuck out to me. Let's see if I can get it here for you. Let's see here. Matt Wells at Texas Tech. Baylor's Dave Arenado. I don't even know who Dave Arenado is. I know Baylor was terrible after Matt Rule left. I know that. They were not very good. Michigan State's Mel Tucker. Okay. I mean, he's ranked above Shane Beamer. Jeff Brom at Purdue. Man, just slow down with all this stuff, man. Slow down a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Satterfield. He had a lot of shine on him when he went up to Louisville, but then not so much. Oh, here's the best one. Mike Norvell at Florida State. The team went 3-6 last season. 3-6 last season. Yeah, but Mike Norvell is ranked 44th on this list. As I was telling folks in the chat room during the break, I will bet whatever. Ice cream on a Sunday. Shane Beamer will not be the 65th ranked coach at the end of this season. I'm pretty confident in that. And you know what? Compared to some of these other guys, he'll still have his job next year at South Carolina over some of these guys that are ranked ahead of him that probably will be looking to probably calling Shane Beamer looking to get a job or finding a job in another Power 5 program. This list, by the way, is going on the bookcase of accountability, which is over to my right. As I've said, Teddy Hefner gets the top shelf. Lawton Swan gets the second shelf. The third shelf here in the fine Fox Sports Radio studios is nothing but a big glob of papers that I have put together that is basically stuff that writers have put out. And what they do is they'll put out all these predictions at the beginning of the year. Then you go back and look for them at the end of the year and they're gone. Why? Because they don't want you to think that they can lose credibility for putting some predictions out there. So you can't find them online a lot of the time. So I'm going to keep the bookcase of accountability. We've got the first FPI rankings for ESPN, how those are going to turn out. Several other little things, but this one's going up there too. The coaching rankings for the upcoming season with Shane Beamer at number 65. That's going to be interesting to say the least. I think that's my big problem with a lot of folks that do sports talk and that write and things like that. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll come out and tell you I'm wrong. I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather be honest with you than to just sit and hide under a rock. Oh, I don't remember what I predicted at the beginning of the season. That's why I have a big whiteboard in front of me here, and I'm going to put my predictions for each game at the beginning of the season. They'll stay there on the whiteboard. I keep my podcast up. You can go and listen to last year's predictions for the show at any time. They're always there. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, check out The Rundown with Rob Sanders. You should subscribe anyway. New podcasts up every day at 5:00. But all of that's there. And a lot of times, sometimes I'm right on things. Sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm way off. I admit that. But we're going to have the bookcase of accountability because come December, it's like a Christmas gift. A Christmas gift. Let's look at the people who don't want you to know their predictions after July 15th. They don't want you knowing any of that stuff. Just read this now so that people will see that you read it. And then hopefully I will mold your thinking into the way that I think. But then after that, it's going to be gone. We'll have that for you with the bookcase of accountability right here on The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Okay, quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up today's show for you. Been an interesting program. We'll finish it up here on a Wednesday afternoon. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Bookcase of baloney. That's funny. That's funny, Jimmy. Yeah, I think we'll do the show 9 or 9:30 tonight. James was asking earlier. That's what time we're going to do it. Jackpot's going to lose his gizzards. I'm gonna send him the message right now, and we'll see what he says. Check this out. I'm gonna send him the message right now. Let's see here. Congrats. You have the worst coach in the country. According to CBS. Watch Jackpot lose his mind. He may put out a video on that quick. I can tell you, Jackpot's going to be mad tonight. My goodness. He hates stuff like that. Bronco Mitt. Brian Harsin is number 27. Holy, did anybody see that? Did anybody? Brian Harsin's at 27. Wow. Wow, that's great. I don't even know where to go with that. Just dumb. David Cutcliffe's at 29. He's won 11 conference games in 5 seasons. Wow. Hold on, we got to mention that. My goodness, man. Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. A couple of other coaches on this list. Number 29, a coach that has gone 11-31 in the past 5 seasons in the ACC. That would be Coach David Cutcliffe at Duke. He's good enough to be 29th, even though he's won 11 conference games in 5 seasons. Look, I'm not disputing how good of a football mind David Cutcliffe is. He's almost like the professor of the ACC. But he's won 11 conference games in 5 seasons. Wow. And number 27 is Brian Harsin. Brian Harsin at Auburn. All they're chalking up with Auburn is what he did at Boise State, where he went 69-19 in 7 seasons at Boise State, winning the Mountain West 3 times with 6 division titles. But what has he done on the Power 5 level? If we're going to say, hey, Shane Beamer hasn't done anything, what has Brian Harsin done other than get South Carolina assistants to come to his program in the middle of the night? That's pretty much what he's done. Hey, all that success we had in the Mountain West, we're not going to bring that down to Auburn. We're going to have SEC retreads. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get guys that have failed at other spots and bring them here to Auburn, and we're going to give them Auburn pullover polos, and that's going to make them better coaches. That's pretty much what Brian Harsin wants you to believe. What a disaster this list is. What a mess. Some of the coaches on here do make sense. Wake Forest coach Dave Clawson, one of the more underrated coaches in the country, coaches at the smallest Power 5 school in the country. He's at number 28. And I thought that that's who I would have called if I were South Carolina. The guy just builds, man. And he uses talent differently than everybody else, meaning that, hey, I can't recruit big, giant offensive linemen to come to Wake Forest, so we're going to have a different kind of offense where you can put up good numbers. So that's kind of the way it comes down tonight. When it comes down to Wake Forest, anyway, I'd venture to say he could probably go higher. Lane Kiffin's at 30. Manny Diaz is at 32. Mike Leach is at 33. Okay, then. Lance Leipold at Kansas is ranked higher than a lot of folks at 35. What a mess. Anyway, NBA playoffs tonight. If you missed our conversation with Terrence Oglesby, the former Clemson guard, feel free to check him out. He will be, the whole podcast will be up later on for you there. Get Terrence's thoughts on several different things, including the NBA, the transfer portal. I'm start calling it the trash portal. I have to be very careful when I'm doing sportscasts for the South Carolina Radio Network that I don't call it the trash portal, because that's what I think it is. I think it is the trash portal. So, yeah, there you go. By the way, my buddy Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk will be joining us, be joining you here shortly as he gets you set for your ride home this afternoon. Be sure to check him out. He's at Clemson Sports. He'll have all kinds of interesting stuff for you to check out there on his show, Clemson Sports Talk.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Everyone loves the Swan. He wants to be mayor. He would not say things like Brian Harsin is a silly goose down at Auburn for hiring SEC retreads. He would not say that because he doesn't want to hurt the Auburn fans' feelings. He has no problem with Auburn. I don't have a problem with Auburn either, but I'll tell their fans, you wanted an SEC retread, you should have hired why not hire Will Muschamp to be your coach? He could have just brought more retreads in with him. What a mess. Man, that should be the name of the show today. Other than Terrence Oglesby, the show's name should be What a Mess Today. All right, tomorrow on the program, we will look ahead to the upcoming weekend. We've got the PGA Tour tomorrow. All kinds of stuff there. Got lots of great stuff coming up here over the weekend. The Braves playing the Red Sox lost last night 10-8, which a Red Sox loss is a win for America. Atlanta could not pull us through last night, but they will be tuning it up. They play tonight at 7:20. Acuna should be getting back into the lineup. They should be getting Mike Soroka back as well. And Yanoa should be coming back, so they'll get some help with the pitching. Marcelo Zuna, I don't know what's going to happen with him. He's not playing right now. Word of advice, don't choke your wife, girlfriend, whatever. That's not going to help your baseball career. It makes you a very bad person, too. Anyway, be sure to check out Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk. He's next. Podcast up at 5 o'clock. I'm on Twitter at RobSoundsGood. And I appreciate Terrence Oglesby joining us today, the former Clemson guard, who will have a much bigger job here shortly. So thanks to him for joining the program. I'll be back at it tomorrow. We will talk to you then on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right. Appreciate you guys, man. We'll see you later on, all right? 9:30 tonight, Jackpot and I.